I'm lonely, and here is the story. So a lot of us glamorize this idea of entrepreneurship, this idea of having your own business, traveling the world, and I definitely contributed to that image. However, there is a dark side to it, and the dark side can be actually quite dark, and nobody talks about it, and myself included on this channel. I've only sort of praised this path and talked, about how amazing it is. But there is a caveat here, and there are some things that really are difficult to handle, and I'd like to share what's difficult with you today in this video. So to start with, there's one main thing that people barely mention, and that is that as an entrepreneur, as somebody who's building a digital business, somebody who's working online, you are always alone. You don't have a team of people around you. And myself, I do have a team of 30 people, but they're all online. So I'd love to go out with them for a drink on a Friday night, but that can't happen, right? So I spend most of my days, just me, myself, and I, and my laptop. Now, yes, it sort of has its own perks because I can, wake up whenever I want to. I can do my gym session whenever I feel like it. I can even hop on the plane and fly to see a friend. That's all true, and that's what I love about it. But at the same time, when you are by yourself all the time, that means that you are dependent on yourself to always motivate yourself, to always keep yourself inspired, to always keep yourself accountable, to always be on it, so to speak, right? Because what happens if you are in an office, if you have a group of people around you, and that's a very sort of human thing, that we do get energized by the interaction, we do get energized by meeting people, brainstorming, being with them. And yes, you could say, well, I personally have all of this on Zoom with my colleagues, but it is, in the end of the day, I have to admit, it is not the same as being with somebody there, live, having that contact and feeling that relationship in real time, in real life. And it can become quite isolating over time, and it can become quite, also taxing on your nervous system, on the way, you sort of approach life. So, for example, when we all went into COVID, into lockdowns, I didn't find it very difficult because I had been living like that for most of my adult life, right? Like I had been living in my own little cave. However, when you spend this much time in your own cave, quote unquote, sometimes it is challenging to force yourself out of it, right? It's not always easy to then, be sociable suddenly, or to, push yourself out of your comfort zone, because you're living in this sort of semi-monastic digital life. So that idea of having that freedom means not being accountable to other people and to other institutions, and that's how you sort of have that ultimate freedom that I love, that I advocate for. But it does come with this downside. At the same time, number two in this spiel of the dark side of entrepreneurship, and that is traveling and what it does to you. So I love to travel. I travel a lot, I spend a good part of my month flying places and, what I deem to be living my best life. However, having said that, by moving so often, by relocating countries, by embracing this lifestyle of digital entrepreneurship and freedom, what you have to trade is, again, community. Because you don't build community by constantly moving, but constantly changing places and countries. So what happens is that you end up having a lot of friends all across the world, great friends in multiple countries. But when it comes to a Friday night in this other country that you just moved to, for example, here in Cambodia, you don't have anybody to go out with for dinner or a drink. And yes, I'm here with my partner, and it's, like I have that. I'm not going to complain. But at the same time, you can't just always live with your partner, right? Like in that bubble, right? You need society, you need people, you need networking, and all those things that come with it. So traveling is great, but it does eliminate one of the most foundational needs for us as human beings. Yes, you can be this nomadic person. Yes, you can make friends as you travel. And yes, you may be having, a lovely conversation with a random person in a random cafe there in Bali or Dubai or wherever that place is, right? But you'll start to long for that deeper connection. And, it's as anything in life, like I still choose this path, and I still do the things that, end up eliminating community and, make me spend most of my time alone. But I want to also talk about it because I think that is not expressed enough. That feeling of, simply wanting to meet up with a dear friend, and that is, not happening in the different time zone. So traveling is not always, peaches and cream, and that is the reality of it. And I do sometimes, find myself, feeling isolated. And lonely at times. I wouldn't say lonely to the extreme, because again, as I said, I'm traveling with my partner. I'm not alone, so I do have that. But at the same time, the isolation part of it is real. And what happens then, that if you do want to connect to not only your friends, but you want to grow professionally, for example, you want to immerse yourself in new sort of ideas and environments, it is quite hard to find a place then where you can do that. Because, you're a business owner, you work for yourself, you have the team, you have the leader, but then there is no sort of room or space or platform that is easily accessible that you can go to and get inspired, get reinvigorated. That's not readily available. Yes, there are conferences, there are retreats, but you have to proactively seek them. And at the same time, you do not know really what type of people are going to be there before you get there. So you may end up, signing up for something that is really, not your tribe, and not your vibe, and not your people. So that isolation that you experience is, I think, probably, in my opinion, the darkest side of entrepreneurship, and especially digital entrepreneurship. I'm probably not talking about local businesses where you may be providing a service and you're constantly having clients come through your door, interacting with them, being part of your community. I think that's different, right? I'm talking about something else, like about this digital format, which allows you the ultimate freedom, the ultimate scalability, actually uncapped wealth, because if you're smart enough, you can actually grow it. But it does come with these limitations and challenges. And I was reading this book, and now I think I'm not gonna remember the name on the spot, but what it said one important thing, that the chapter was titled "The Loneliness of a Digital Entrepreneur," something along those lines. And it said the reason why you as an entrepreneur, digital entrepreneur, end up feeling lonely is because that we as humans derive a lot of happiness out of shared rhythms and shared traditions with fellow human beings. Meaning that the fact that all of us have weekends on a Saturday and Sunday, and that is our weekend, makes us all share that working week, and then we all together gather and and have the weekends together. And because of that, we are sort of in the same boat, and we find connection and kinship, because we all live in societies that share hopefully sort of semi-similar ideals. We don't feel alone in that, right? Like if you have a group of friends and everybody's in a job, as currently we all sort of criticize that being in a job is not the best thing, and your salary is capped, all of which is true. However, by being in a job, by having a group of people around you, by having friends who are in similar type of jobs, you have a community, you have shared patterns of life, and in that you're not alone, and in that you derive joy because you're going through this weird experience of being human together. Now, what happens if you become a digital entrepreneur, or choose any other sort of scenario in life where you start to deviate from this norm, right? You no longer partake with the rest of society in the shared rituals, traditions, ideals, and you don't live sort of under the same schedule either. So your weekends may be on a Monday, for example, because you have least calls or clients then. Or you may not have a weekend at all. You may have work calls, but in the evenings, because you may be working like I have it now. So I work a lot with Europe and America, and I'm in Asia. So all of my evenings are packed with calls and work. So I don't have evenings free. So I'm no longer sharing this sentiment with the rest of society. Here in Asia, I can't just go out for a drink at 8 p.m. Because I'm working, right? And my free time is actually in the morning, which for most people is the time that they work. And in that, as digital entrepreneurs, we separate ourselves, or we are naturally separated from the majority of the society. And this is where the sort of sense of loneliness or the sense of not belonging arises. And it's proven scientifically over and over again that human beings are the happiest when they belong. So, so this is the price you pay. You don't belong really when you become a digital entrepreneur, especially if you go on this, trip across the world and do things as you please, because you're no longer sharing these rhythms. Now, there are ways to align it. There are ways to probably, still be in a society, in a community, but you need to put an effort in it. It's not a given anymore, because your life can be anything you want it to be. And this is the beauty of this path, but that's the weight of freedom. Because when you are ultimately free, right, you have the responsibility. You are then responsible for yourself, and you're fully owning that responsibility. There is nothing that is somewhat dictated and defined for you by the society. And it's up to you to make up those rules and create a framework for yourself in which you actually feel genuinely happy, and a framework in which you do find and have this sense of belonging. Because if you don't create that, sooner or later you'll get to the point where you would be burning out, or you'd be feeling unmotivated, or even depressed. And I had that point in my life as well, and this is where it was 2019, and I actually chose to go back to my hometown, actually, and my home country, to Lithuania, because I felt that I completely detached from these, any type of society, and I was living a very independent life. And that idea of not belonging anywhere was so triggering at that point that I felt that I needed to reconnect, and I felt that I needed to go back to my roots to reconnect, which was very, very helpful. And for like 3 to 4 years, I was actually living quite a settled life. And now, my partner and I decided to go on an adventure again, and we are moving around the world again. So this is the dark side of entrepreneurship, and it is coming, and it does come with a cost, and it is not always as glamorous as people make it to be. And I think there is a way to consciously structure it, but I can't tell you how many times, I ended up feeling lonely and isolated on a Friday night, where, you'd be on a flight, on your 10th flight that month, and you know that you're going to land and you're going to end up sort of in a hotel room where you go out and you don't know anybody, and that your routine is just so not dependent on anybody that it can be anything, and in that, to find the drive, you have to really derive the strength and the drive from within. So this is where I think to lead this life, to build businesses, to become a digital entrepreneur, you have to also develop your sense of self, the sense of your own integrity, and become fairly resilient as a human being, so that you can handle the freedom. Because freedom is great, but you need the tools to be able to handle it. So that's my take on the dark side of entrepreneurship. I'll see you in the next video.